Welcome back to Moscow on this busy news night. We just got some breaking news tonight from the White House. The president has decided he is going to sign that sanctions bill into law. If most people thought relations between Moscow and Washington would improve after President Trump took office, instead today they have reached a new low. No matter what the White House team does, the story of the possible collusion between the Trump team and the Kremlin just won't go away. But what if we've been all looking at this backwards? What if taking over our national agenda was the whole point? What if we've already taken the bait? It was one of the most closely watched political encounters in decades.
We look forward to a lot of very positive things happening.
President Trump clearly had high hopes for the relationship. But we wanted to find out more about what President Putin was thinking.
What he wants is to be perceived to be a major player on the world stage.
So we went to someone who has been studying him for years, former CIA officer Daniel Hoffman.
Ideologically, Vladimir Putin is our enemy. The ideals we hold near and dear, like liberty and freedom and democracy, are an anathema to President Putin. We should start with that and remember that.
What do you think Putin's overall goal is?
He wants, I would say, three overarching goals: interfere with our electoral process, interfere with our governing process as well, and then elevate Russia's stature in the world so that we perceive Russia to be on the same level as the United States.
Hoffman believes that Putin and the Russian intelligence services set President Trump and his team up for failure. He focused on that now infamous meeting between Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, and 5 other people whose names leaked out to the press, one after the other.
Russian intelligence would not send a bevy of Kremlin-connected, influential Russians all together to a meeting. It was as if Putin was channeling the Brothers Grimm and leaving breadcrumbs a la Hansel and Gretel all the way back to the Kremlin.
So you think they did want us to find out about this meeting?
Absolutely did.
The initial invitation came in the form of an email with a tantalizing offer of high-level and sensitive information that would incriminate Hillary. Donald Trump Jr. wrote back right away, "If it's what you say, I love it." Hoffman says the email was what professionals call a poison pill and that the Trump team swallowed it whole.
The Russians have a saying. It's «Бесплатный сыр бывает только в мышеловке». Means that free cheese can only be found in a mousetrap.
So the offer for help and information about Hillary Clinton, that would be the cheese and the meeting would be the trap?
Yes, I believe so.
Tonight, the president's son on defense.
Tonight, Donald Trump Jr. provided a statement to
Hoffman believes that once the Trump team took the bait, Putin was counting on the free press in America to do what it does best, investigating and exposing all the details.
Some U.S. officials suspect him of having ties to Russian intelligence.
I think Vladimir Putin understood that this would lead to a media feeding frenzy, which is what we've seen. And a great deal of time and effort being focused on this issue that would ultimately interfere with our governing process, drive a wedge among different elements of our government.
And Trump Jr. wasn't the first member of the president's team to be targeted by Moscow.
One of the biggest challenges is the misperceptions. And
Carter Page has always believed Americans should be more friendly towards Russia.
It's a very basic, simple principle. If you treat someone with respect and you have a constructive, positive approach, then people reciprocate that.
Why are you so sympathetic toward Russia? It seems like you are feeling like, oh, the Kremlin is just misunderstood.
That's a mischaracterization. I think I am looking for a better situation for the United States.
A former naval officer, Page became an investment banker and spent 3 years working in Moscow. He says he mostly worked for a single client, Gazprom, a Russian state-owned energy company. But Page insisted that he had no contact with Russian intelligence in Moscow.
Never in the over 25 years since I first went there in 1991.
Because wouldn't you be the kind of person they would want to recruit?
It would obviously have been me, right?
But you say it never happened.
Never. Never even a hint at it happening.
I would say with great confidence that he was on the radar. The Russians with whom Mr. Page engaged in Moscow would have been reporting on their contact with an American businessman to the FSB. That's standard procedure.
Page returned to New York, opened his own firm, and moved into the building next door to Trump Tower. At which point, he was approached by a man who said he was a Russian attaché at the UN.
This is what he reportedly said in his reports about his meetings with you. He said you travel to Moscow all the time, that you are, quote, hooked on Gazprom and very greedy. Now, that sounds to me like a spy who's writing back to his handlers about your potential weaknesses he wants to exploit.
I know a lot of the top managers of Gazprom, known them for many years. If they wanted to offer me a bribe, do you think they would have a junior attaché make this offer? I mean, it's just so nonsensical.
He reports back to Moscow that he received some papers, documents from you. Did you give him any papers?
I may have given him and emailed him a copy of some public research reports, you know, some of the developments in energy markets. I can't remember what specifically.
This is a very time-honored tactic for Russian intelligence. They will seek to get the targets comfortable with providing information, even if the information is what we call open source. Then you're going to start asking for more protected information.
The attaché was, in fact, a spy. He and two others were busted by the FBI. Page was interviewed, but they didn't press charges. But the Russians weren't done with Page yet, because he suddenly became famous when the then Republican candidate name-checked him during an interview with the Washington Post.
We heard you might be announcing your foreign policy advisory team soon, if there's anything you can share on that.
We are going to be doing that. You know, I hadn't thought in terms of doing it. If you want, I could give you some of the names. Carter Page, PhD.
That was last March. By July, the campaign's new advisor was granted a meeting with Moscow's ambassador to Washington, Sergei Kislyak, on the sidelines of the Republican convention.
What did you talk about?
You know, I can't even remember. There was a group conversations with a lot of people.
You didn't speak one-on-one?
I don't recall ever having any direct discussions.
Why would he want to meet with Carter Page?
Nothing I saw of anything he ever did could even vaguely be construed as trying to influence the U.S. election.
But Hoffman says for the Russians, the point of the conversation was not content, but contamination.
The difference in terms of status between Mr. Page and Mr. Kislyak is quite significant. Vladimir Putin would understand that that would drive a bit of media interest in why Mr. Page was engaging with an ambassador. They never should have been meeting.
Page traveled to Moscow on a trip he said was private and unrelated to the campaign.
Respect is not something which magically appears.
But journalists kept asking questions about his past. Soon, the campaign decided to cut him loose, but the stories just kept coming. Just like the ones about other members of Trump's team. Their credibility and that of the administration is called into question daily as investigators and the media uncover clue after clue, always looking for that smoking gun, but never quite finding it.
Do you think we're ever going to find something that wasn't laid down for us, that wasn't part of the trap?
I think if the media can discover the breadcrumbs, then they were deliberately placed.
What Hoffman is saying is that the Russians have already achieved their goal. They set the traps and then sat back and waited for them to snap shut, unleashing chaos.
Russian intelligence officers have been fond of saying that there are useful idiots who can do the bidding for us.
And what is a useful idiot from Russia's perspective?
Someone certainly not very sophisticated about the ways of the world and the ways of the intelligence world.
Does President Trump fit that category?
No comment.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.